The claims that people can make. I could probably put some like coconut oil into a lotion in my kitchen and give that to you, and you're like, I love this. And I'm like, 100% of people say it's amazing, right? And sell it.
Yeah.
That's meaningless. So it's hard to be a consumer out there right now.
Yeah, we've done a whole podcast episode on what to look out for in buying supplements and all of the things that happen behind the scenes. It's kind of horrifying. If I can remember, I'll put the link to that episode as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
You've got to know where you're getting your ingredients from. All right, well, it's a real pleasure to have Jennifer Scheinman on the show. Welcome.
Well, it's so nice to be here. Thanks again for having me.
Yeah, I was going to say Jennifer Simmons, or I was going to say doctor something.
I
But
get
that
doctor
sounded
often, and I'm like, I just play one on TV. I like to think I'm a doctor, but
That's what
definitely
it came out so awkward.
not.
So thank you, Dr. Jennifer Scheinman. So we had an episode that we recorded, and I'll have this link in the show notes, all about Urolithin A and your background as a nutritionist and how you got into this and what Urolithin does. And we'll take a little recap on Urolithin A, but this episode's all about skin and skin health and certain molecules that will affect it. But I would love to start out with the fact that the food that we eat or the things that we take in ingest does have an effect on how our skin looks. It's not just the creams that we use or the facials that we do. I mean, this is all really great, but usually when you talk to a nutritionist, they're like, yeah, it comes from the inside out as well. It's really, really important. So why don't we start out there and how the foods that we eat can improve or make worse our skin?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think people sometimes, I don't want to say forget, they just don't think about the fact that like our skin is actually an organ, right? That has a function besides just how we look and how we present to the world. And so when you think about our skin that way as a biological organ, obviously what you eat and all of the lifestyle factors, right? Sleep, even exercise, we're starting to learn benefits how our skin looks and functions are going to play a big role in just how we present in the world and how our skin looks. And so I always, no surprise as a dietitian, like my first foundational thing for whatever we're working on really obviously is going to be the food that you eat and the quality of the food that you eat. And we know that there are certain foods that can trigger conditions in the skin or just make your skin just not look glowy and healthy. And then when you're eating a well-balanced diet full of nutritious whole foods and all the vitamins and minerals you need, like you can tell the difference between that type of person and someone who is eating a junk food diet because their skin starts to look different. And this is especially true as we get older. Younger people that I think are, and when I say younger, like 30 and below, but definitely young adults in their early 20s, like they can get away with a lot, right? I had plenty of friends that drank tons when we were in our 20s and didn't really eat well, and their skin looked amazing, but it's catching up with them now, right? And so that's the thing. If you're sort of thinking, well, I don't really eat that well and my skin looks great, like you might be still in that window where your body can respond and compensate for some of that. But your food is absolutely going to be important to how your skin functions and how it looks.
Yeah, because it affects our hormones, right? And our hormone production and having hormone disruptive ingredients or things that are maybe not so good. You always hear of the person who says, oh, I can't eat chocolate, I always break out. Or, yeah, I can't eat fried food. And they can see it definitely on their skin. I mean, is that just a myth or is that really true?
So there is some truth to that, that people have different sensitivities, and it's not always tied to hormones. I think really where, at least in my practice, I've seen the tie the most is actually to gut health and skin, because our skin is actually like sort of part of our immune system, right? It's protecting our body from outside invaders and pathogens in the environment. And that's actually one of your gut's job too, is to control like what's getting into your body from the food that we eat. And so we see very often people who have leaky gut, issues with not only skin breakouts, but things, and I'm not even just talking about on the face, things like eczema, rashes, and just other sort of complications of the skin. So there is absolutely a connection between what you eat. Usually the things I've seen that are triggers, not just for breakouts, but also again, some of these like more eczema and other types of rashes is like gluten and dairy tend to be really big things that are people are sensitive to. That sensitivity shows up in different ways. And the mechanism there is that leaky gut. So it could show up in breakouts. It could show up in joint pain. It could show up in brain fog. It's inflammation that's happening that's being triggered by the gut. And then, yes, there are for people who notice like everything seems to be well controlled, but certain times of the month, like if I notice I start eating differently because of my cravings, and then I notice that I start having breakouts. So there can be a hormonal play in there as well. And I think that's where just understanding your body's individuality and what's really happening. But I think the vast majority, again, in my practice that I've seen, these skin issues turned out to be due to leaky gut causing system-wide inflammation.
Does that have anything to do with ages? As we're getting older, right, we have these advanced glycation end products that a lot of people say, oh, well, sugar is one of those triggers and it binds to the collagen molecule and folds it or bends it and proteins. And then we have more wrinkles, according to what I've been reading, is because of the sugar. So how true is that? Because you do see older women who are in their 70s, I never eat sugar, and their skin looks amazing. And I don't know if it's because of that or something else.
That is absolutely true. So these advanced glycation end products, which we called AGEs, so AGEs age us. So it's a perfectly named acronym. And so what these sugar molecules are doing is it's called glycation. They're attaching themselves to different molecules in our body, and it's aging us both inside and it's aging us outside. And you said it perfectly. It's damaging collagen production. It's damaging, which is eventually causing more fine lines and wrinkles and that laxity that we start to see in our skin as we get older. The ages contribute to, again, that system-wide inflammation that's happening. So we really do want to be mindful of the sugar that we're eating. Yes, we're getting sugar from like complex carbohydrates, but especially these highly processed, high fructose corn syrup, the sugar that's really kind of like seeping in almost unbeknownst to us when we aren't paying attention to the ingredient list in our things, like even things like bottled store-bought tomato sauce. Like you read the list and there's sugar in there. That's really the type of sugar we need to be watching for, is just like the sweets, the desserts, the highly processed sugars that are entering our body and are causing this glycation to happen.
So are we having the ages in our eating fruit or having a sweet potato because there's turns into carbohydrates, and is that damaging?
Yeah, so much more of the damage is happening from the actual sugar. It's causing our blood sugar to rise. It's causing the damage to these sensitive molecules, our proteins like the collagen. There's a fine line, right? Like we do need to balance, like carbohydrates have a wonderful role in our body in terms of energy. And there are some people who do amazing on ketogenic diets and do really, really well on low carb diets. And then there are certain people like myself, I honestly function better. My workouts are better when I do include high quality carbs. So there is this fine balance between making sure that you're nourishing your body. You don't need to eliminate all sugars, but let's start with that low-hanging fruit, those sort of highly dense, like sugar spiking molecules. Because what happens when we're eating fruits, vegetables, things that have fiber, first of all, those foods have tremendous nutrition in them. They have polyphenols, they have vitamins, there's other amazing fiber, amazing things in there. But those fibers also slow down how quickly we absorb the sugar. So we're not getting blood sugar spikes. So again, some people do really well on ketogenic diets. And if that is something that you feel like you thrive and you do well in, but in terms of just whole like aging, skin health, gut health, those fibers that we're getting from a lot of these foods that do have complex carbs are really going to be beneficial too. And sometimes we're like, well, how do I eat for this? How do I eat for this? How do I eat for this? And at the end of the day, you eat the same way for health, right? And that is with nourishing whole foods, really trying to eliminate the processed foods that are full, again, of high fructose corn syrup. They're full of like preservatives, emulsifiers, just other chemicals that are wreaking havoc on our system. And we're focusing on the foods that sort of are as nature intended. And if you're eating a well-balanced of all of these things, there's plenty of vegetables, there's plenty of lean proteins, there's plenty of fiber-rich grains, but there's some of all of those, you're going to be doing okay. Unless, again, like you have a very, like, there's some specific goal that you're working on or some specific underlying condition that maybe that balance needs to be tweaked for you. But for the general population, I think the sugar that's coming from those natural places is going to be just fine in terms of triggering wrinkle production. Or one of the things, right, like vitamin C is great. Like obviously we know about that topically, but that it's part of the collagen production. So you need to make sure that you're eating a lot of vitamin C, and we're going to get that from fruits. We're going to get that from things like sweet potatoes. So those nutrients that help our skin are also going to sometimes be in foods that will have carbohydrates as well. So you sort of need it all.
Yeah, exactly. It makes perfect sense. And Yeah, I meant to mention that these carbohydrates break down into glucose, which is a sugar. And that's why there was the concern, but not have to worry about it because there's also benefits as well. And the benefits may outweigh any kind of risk of triggering ages. And that's super important. And so I would say a great thing, fruits and the vegetables. I've done some, when I first started drinking green shakes, for example, I noticed my skin had improved. And I'm wondering if there's certain foods, certain vegetables, or certain fruits, and as well as protein, because skin is made out of protein. There are studies in mouse models showing a mouse that doesn't eat protein, his hair is falling out and not looking so good. So when somebody's trying to improve their skin health, I often say, well, also, how much protein are you getting? Maybe it's not adequate, and see if that makes any changes. What are like maybe the top three foods you would say that would be great for our skin as we're going through midlife?
So I think, there are certain nutrients that are going to be a little bit like we talked about vitamin C is great for skin health. So that's going to be in things like your strawberries, obviously your citrus is well known, peppers, tomatoes. Interestingly, the red coloring in like tomatoes, watermelon, lycopene, that actually
Pomegranate is
pomegranate. I believe pomegranate has lycopene, but I should know that. And I'm not sure off the top of my head. So we'll get back on that. Pomegranate has some other wonderful antioxidants, but lycopene is also incredible for skin health and just in general, these antioxidants. Now, when we talk about protein foods, it's interesting. So absolutely protein. I mean, collagen is a protein. Keratin is a protein. These are proteins in your skin. Now, generally, when we eat protein, right, it gets digested into its single amino acids, and then our body uses those building blocks to rebuild. So when I think of common sense, right, like it doesn't necessarily matter whether you're eating like fish or whether you're eating steak or whether you're eating chicken, like all those amino acids are going to be utilized to rebuild your skin. But here's where it gets a little bit interesting. When we talk about dietary collagen in terms of taking that as a supplement, right. Again, that common sense thinking is, well, gosh, all those amino acids are going to just break down and they're going to then be converted. How does the body know to put them back into collagen? But it actually seems like the body does know to take those collagen peptides and then turn them back into collagen because we've seen a lot of really well done studies showing that dietary collagen does seem to improve skin texture, nails, hair, all of that as well. I'm also seeing, and I'm playing around with this, so I can't report yet, but I've seen some interesting studies on actually a dietary supplement of keratin, believe it or not, which I think came from sheep's wool and helping with hair quality and nail quality as well. So I'm actually trying some of that myself and can report back. But so it does seem that some of these proteins do get rebuilt how we want them to be. And I don't have an answer for why that is. And a third food that I would put in there would be your omega-3 fatty acids, because that is really going to help with moisturization of the skin. That is going to help with the quality of the membranes of the cells. And also, it's a potent anti-inflammatory molecule. And so inflammation, especially what's coming from the environment, is part of what's triggering skin aging as well. So those would probably be like my top three is like antioxidants from fruits and vegetables, just high quality protein, and then some omega-3 fatty acid foods.
perfect. Okay, including all of those in my diet. And then you mentioned things like vitamin C. Vitamin C, we get it from our food or some of our vegetables and fruit, but we also put it on our skin, right? We buy these serums and we put it on our skin. Are there any other molecules that are good for our skin when we ingest it, like as a supplement, and then can double up as putting something on our skin?
Yeah, so absolutely. So vitamin C is one of those. I think many people are very familiar with like different varieties of retinols, tretinoin. That's a vitamin A derivative. And then our friend Urolithin A, it turns out the skin cells will absorb that topically as well. So it is really interesting. And it's sort of like consumer be wary when you start to see things that are in food that and how they impact skin. I think like right now there's a lot going on TikTok about like beef tallow and like being amazing for your skin. And I haven't really dived into that research yet, but it tells me that's like TikTok trendy and not necessarily there's great science on that. Interestingly, we were like talking about collagen as well, and the collagen peptides, most of them are too large for the skin cell to absorb. So while you take it dietarily, it's helpful. So the consumer does need to do a little bit of research on when you see these sort of food molecules or nutrients, will that translate into skin health when you put it topically? Like when you eat them, there's well established benefits, but does it work topically? And so I think vitamin C, as I mentioned, some of the different vitamin A's, and then of course Urolithin A, the science is clear that those things, when you do apply them topically, have very potent and localized benefits in the skin.
That's such a great, it's great that you mentioned that because I do remember reading up on collagen as well. And I've interviewed some other skincare experts and they said, yeah, don't be fooled by a product that says I have collagen in it and put it on your face. It's just
Yep.
not going to work. Eat it, but
Yep.
it's not going to have an effect on the face. And there were a couple of other ingredients as well that we eat, like NAD, for example, was great as a supplement or whatever NAD boosting molecules, but having it
Yeah.
directly on the face is debatable because the molecules as well is
Too
too big.
sensitive. Yeah.
So we've had a couple of episodes on these things, and that's really interesting. So I'd love to know a little bit more about Urolithin A because the listener may not be up to speed or hasn't heard that episode. So why don't we do a little recap on what Urolithin A, maybe how it compares to vitamin C or any of these other molecules that most people are familiar with.
Yeah, well, let's start with like where you might find this in nature and where it would naturally be. And the studies first started with it in terms of a dietary nutrient, and then we can talk about how it translates into skin. But it's what's called a postbiotic nutrient. So your listeners are probably very familiar, obviously, with like probiotics. Those are the healthy bacteria that live inside our gut. And a term that I think many people, but not everybody, are familiar with is prebiotic, right? And that is the fuel for our probiotics. And there's something that's getting a lot more attention, and it's a postbiotic. And that is the molecule that your gut microbiome produces for you. So, in really simple terms, the way I like to think about it is that we give room and board to the bacteria that live in our gut. They get to reside there and be protected from the world. And they get to eat all of the stuff we can't digest. So, fiber is a great example. In the case of urolithin A, certain polyphenols that are found in very specific foods like pomegranates we talked about, certain nuts and certain berries. So we can't break those down ourselves. So our gut microbiome breaks it down for us and they pay us back in these postbiotics, urolithin A being one of them. And the secret sauce about urolithin A and what makes it so powerful and so unique, whether you're taking it internally or whether you're using it topically, is it triggers this recycling process inside our cells. If we think about our mitochondria becoming a really popular sort of wellness trend is like mitochondrial care. And the reason for that is they are the energy suppliers to almost every cell in our body. And I think of them as factories, right? So they are taking the food that we eat, that's the raw materials, and they generate what's called ATP. They generate cellular energy at the end of this very complex factory line. But that factory breaks down as we get older, like all factories through wear and tear. So where urolithin A comes in is it triggers this recycling process of those factories where we can basically dismantle them, demolish them, use the good parts to build new factories that are better functioning and producing more cellular energy. And then the stuff that's no longer working, that will just get removed from the cell as cellular waste and cellular debris. So it's a very unique mechanism of action. No other molecule has been proven yet in humans to trigger that recycling process on the mitochondria. And that's really where, again, its secret sauce is, whether it's being taken internally or whether you're using topically, is you have more cellular energy happening right at the cell.
Incredible. I didn't realize that was the only thing that's been proven to activate mitophagy. Our listeners may be familiar with autophagy, right? The cellular cleanup and recycling process of the cell in general, but this is the mitochondria, which is in the cell, the powerhouses, and then those need to be cleaned up and recycled as well, which is even cooler. So I'm wondering, during the autophagy process, is the mitophagy not happening as well, or
It's probably happening. That's a great question because the autophagy is more of a generic term in the sense that's the entire cell, right? So if you are recycling the cell, I would imagine that parts of the mitochondria are being recycled, the nucleus, all the different components inside the cell. But mitophagy is just a very specific form of autophagy that's really just targeting the mitochondria. And I wanted to just make one little note of correction. So we do know other things that stimulate mitophagy, exercise and fasting, but urolithin A is the only external molecule that in humans has been proven. So in mitophagy and autophagy, right, they're both happening in the background all the time. But what happens as we get older is we start to have this buildup of these dysfunctional mitochondria, and then our cleanup mechanism, our quality control mechanism, that starts to lower. And these are both two of what are called these hallmarks of aging. We have these 13 12, 13 hallmarks of aging, which are biologic processes of aging. This is two of them. So buildup of dysfunctional mitochondria, less ability to recycle them. So we want to be doing the things, exercise, of course, fasting, if you can, that's not for everybody. And I think the debate is still out, like, can you do a 12-hour or 14-hour fast and stimulate enough autophagy or mitophagy? Does it have to be an extended fast? And again, I'm not sure that fasting, again, in my practice, is not something that is for everyone. So it's great to have other things that can help augment what our body is already doing.
I am totally on board with that. I think a lot of women in our menopause transition, we are having a little bit more insulin resistance. What worked before in terms of diet and exercise was not working anymore. And I meet women who are just exercising more and more and eating less and less, and nothing's shifting. It's actually getting worse. So then some of them go into fasting, and their hormones are just completely disrupted from this because they're using it too much. I think fasting is a tool, and different people react different things. We have different reasons why somebody may want to fast, but honestly, I discourage women from doing these long fasts in this period of time because we have enough stress. And so I'm always looking for the things. And so what you've described is, yeah, if we can activate mitophagy with a molecule or with some exercise, and it seems similar to autophagy, we can take a spermidine supplement, or we can also exercise and other things that we can do. And this is so important to know. So we need to have these things as a foundation, and then we want to bump it up a notch. You want to see a little bit more, or we want to have just more support. Well, then Urolithin A is another great thing. So can we get Urolithin A from the diet?
Yeah. So sort of yes and no. So it's not directly in the food that we eat. I think that's the most important thing to keep hammering home. We're relying on our gut to make it for us. And here's why it's sort of yes and no. So you're not going to find a food specifically high in urolithin A. You're going to need to eat those dietary precursors like pomegranates. You're going to need to have the right gut microbiome. And we're not 100% sure like what is the right gut microbiome to make urolithin A. And we're in this process of testing a diagnostic of how to know whether you produce urolithin A. It's a very simple little blood test. And it's looking for, is there urolithin A in your bloodstream after you have the dietary precursors? And what we found with people that are doing all the things for gut health, still not really producing meaningful quantities of it. And in fact, what we've seen in our clinical studies is if you are a producer, you'd have to drink 6 cups of pomegranate juice every day to get the same amount of urolithin A in your blood as 500 milligrams of a supplement. And I don't know about the people that you work with, but I would never tell someone to drink 6 cups of pomegranate juice a day. Eat your pomegranate. It's delicious. You want to put a little splash of pomegranate juice in your seltzer to give some flavor, go for it. But I am never going to tell someone to drink 6 cups of juice a day. I think there's 30 grams of sugar in just 1 cup. No, that's not what we want to be doing. So that's why it's sort of yes and no. You could potentially get it from food. It's just not ideal for most people. And most of us don't even know if we make it. Like I know myself, for example, I was a bottle-fed baby. I was a C-section baby. I was given antibiotics when I was little, and no, like shame to my mom. We just didn't know 50 years ago what we know now. And so there's just certain things in my gut that will just never be there that should have been there, right? And so I want to optimize my gut health, but I will also not rely on that 100% for certain things, like example, urolithin A. So
In our last episode, we talked a lot about the benefits of urolithin A and if we take a supplement. And that's actually right when I first started taking a urolithin A supplement, which was Mitopure. And it was the beginning of my journey of my hip surgeries. And I was interesting because I was able to compare the results from the first surgery, the second surgery, of being on a supplement for 3 months, and it was even better. But we talked about how it can help improve muscle strength and endurance, how it can help with inflammation, and I think it was immunity, the third one. And so I was like, this is perfect. This is exactly what I need going into a hospital and going into a surgery. So I'm wondering, but I don't remember in terms of taking it, ingesting urolithin A as a supplement, on the effects on the skin, because we're going to talk a little bit more about what urolithin A does topically, but is there anything internally with a supplement it can do for the skin?
we haven't studied that. We are looking at doing that, but all of our studies to date really with just the dietary supplement have been on muscle, immune, sort of whole body health. What I believe the story goes, but don't quote me on this, is that people reporting like my skin looks better. And I have definitely heard people say my skin looks better. And that's, I think, really what triggered like, oh, what is this doing to the skin? And that's really where we discovered that the skin cells will absorb urolithin A, much like we talked about with like vitamin E, A derivatives and vitamin C. The skin cells will directly absorb urolithin A. That same mitophagy will happen. So all the research that talks about urolithin A and skin is with topical, not with the dietary supplement. But we are looking into, do you get an additive, almost like beauty and health from within and from out without? Do you get an additive benefit if you are taking both? I just don't have an answer to that other than personally, I do think so, but we don't have the science there yet to talk about it. The science, though, is very strong that topical urolithin A is highly potent in helping to target what is causing skin aging. And the results really are on comparison with a topical retinoid like a tretinoin, which is a prescription strength. You'll start to see very similar wrinkle reducing properties there. But I think the beauty of this that makes it very unique is that it is non-irritating. It's not drying. A lot of the issues with our, I hate using the word anti-aging, but like the skin products that we use to slow down skin aging, a lot of them are very harsh and most people can't tolerate them. You have to be so super careful in the sun. And urolithin A is so well tolerated by most people that you don't have to. You still need to be careful in the sun because that's a huge driver of aging, but it's not going to make you more sun sensitive. It's not going to cause that drying, that irritation, those like red scaly patches that a lot of people get when they start using tretinoin or other even like alpha hydroxy acids and things like to be really careful with.
So how does the activation of mitophagy topically on the skin using urolithin A help with skin aging or from, say, let's say, we want to reduce wrinkles or reduce their formation? I mean, was it because there's just energy going on, the cells are turning over faster, or is there something else?
Yeah, I mean, that's really the big driver of it is that your skin cells are basically acting like a more youthful skin cell because they have better functioning mitochondria and they have more energy coming out. But what we also see when we do these skin biopsies is there's genes that are regulating collagen production and also that are saying, hey, like degrading collagen, right? And so the collagen degrading genes are upregulated as we get older. And what we start to see when we use urolithin A topically is those genes that are downregulated now, the ones that degrade collagen and all the ones that are responsible for collagen assembly and organization are turned up. The volume's turned up on that. The other thing that we see, and this is more again like the biological pathways that are happening, is the number one thing that causes skin aging is not really our biological system. It is the environment. It is the sun is the number one thing that's happening. And what we see, we exposed skin cells or actual skin, not just the cells, this was on a human, to UV light. So they were starting to get UV damage and we applied a placebo cream and we applied the urolithin A cream and all the erythema, which is the redness, the inflammation that happens after sun exposure was resolved much more quickly with the urolithin A cream as compared to the placebo. So there seems to be this protection from photo damage and photo aging, which again is unique. So it's working on a couple of different pathways that are contributing to skin aging. And the ultimate result is what we see is a reduction in fine lines and wrinkles. And with the supplement, we talked about this probably a lot last time, is it takes a little bit of time for the dietary supplement to work. You're not going to take it and feel something tomorrow. The skin is a lot quicker. In just 2 weeks, we visibly start to see reduction in fine lines and wrinkles. And in fact, when we do even some of these preclinicals on specifically on the mitochondria, we see that the turnover is happening in 72 hours, which when we did muscle biopsies, it was happening in 1 month. So it's happening a lot quicker. So 2 weeks, we start to notice reduction in fine lines and wrinkles. And then we take those studies out to 8 weeks and we use high-tech imaging, which is basically measuring wrinkle depth and wrinkle volume. It's statistically significant compared to placebo. And again, it's on par and in level with sort of the tried and true things that people tend to be using. I think of like retinol as really like the gold standard for skin health, especially as we age. And so we're seeing very similar wrinkle reduction powers as with these sort of like well-established other topicals.
That's incredible because some people really don't like the retinases and the retinols and
Yeah, I can't use them.
yeah, or they're afraid or they're go out in the sun and then they know they're going to be exposed to sun damage, perhaps
Yep.
cancer, skin cancer. So they refuse to do that. So it's great to know that you can get the same benefits or similar benefits with this without the risk. What
Yep.
if somebody was using them both at the same time? Was that going to be a problem?
So we didn't study it using other topicals. Our studies just were using this, but now that it's been on the market, and I can, again, I'm an N of one, but is that it does really seem to play nice with other things. So even in our skin line, we have other topicals in there that we know it does work well with. So I should say, we didn't do our studies specifically with like retinol, but when we formulated our products, there are other actives that are, again, very common in other ingredients like peptides. Everyone's talking about peptides, not just for the skin, injections. It's like a huge topic. I'm sure you're covering that somewhere, but peptides for the skin are huge. So we have peptides in our products. We have niacinamide, which is also another potent molecule, which helps to protect the skin barrier and helps to, again, target the hallmarks of aging. And then we also have, depending on which product, there's a couple of other additives in there so that like we have a serum, we have a day cream and a night cream so that we can make a whole system. But you could use it if you use retinol, you can use this with retinol for most people. If you do use a other peptide serum, you could use that as well. It's really very safe and well tolerated. So there's not really a necessary concern. And because again, that urolithin A is working on a very specific pathway. So if you are looking to trigger sort of other pathways, right? Like that's why we put niacinamide, that's why we put peptides and we put other ingredients in there so we could have a more holistic approach to skin aging and skin health.
I love it. So if you have peptides in there, we know, for example, copper peptide is
Mhm.
well tolerated when you mix it with vitamin C, for example. So would it be okay to still use a vitamin C together with the
Yeah,
peptides that you
I
have?
would recommend usually just because vitamin C is so sensitive that you sort of, the way I've been taught is like if you put your vitamin C serum on first, you kind of want to let that dry and absorb and let that really do its thing. And then you would want to put something else on. And we don't have vitamin C in our serum or our day cream. So that might be something that you want to consider as an add-on. But we do have other potent antioxidants that are in our both serum, day cream, and night cream. So you are getting that antioxidant effect as well. But yes, vitamin C is very sensitive. So I think it's always best to like let that sort of do its job first, put that on, get dressed, and then kind of do the rest of your skincare routine.
There have been many studies on Urolithin A, and you have a lot of them on the website and timeline.com, and we can dive into that. I rarely see a skincare company with so many studies, and as well as with the supplement as well, and on its product itself. And Timeline is the leader in the Urolithin A research. So I'm wondering if there's any research done on how on Urolithin A topically and collagen production. Is there anything where it says, oh, increase collagen by 10% or 30%?
We don't have that study yet. So really, because the skin line is so new, it's really, gosh, maybe about 2 years old. Really, the studies have been on mitochondrial health. Again, we looked at those gene markers of collagen production and then sort of the ultimate outcome, which is fine lines and wrinkles. I suspect that there will be a lot of studies coming out in the future that are looking at things like collagen production, that are looking at using it with retinols, that are looking at using it with other things. One of the things like I'm excited to see, which we get questions a lot about, I don't have an answer yet, is can you use it with laser treatments? The other things that we're doing to help build collagen, and does it help augment and support those things? So there's a lot more to come on this, and the skin line is being heavily researched right now for other areas that we can kind of see. So don't know yet, but I suspect if the genes that are turning on collagen organization and assembly are turned up, I would suspect that we're going to see more collagen. I just don't have a research article to point to that.
Are there many other companies or laboratories researching Urolithin A?
We have a strategic partnership with L'Oreal. So L'Oreal is doing a lot of research with urolithin A. So, but
Oh,
we are the only, whether it's for the dietary supplement or the skin line, we really are the only clinically validated urolithin A topical or supplement out there. So just sort of buyer beware if you're like, wow, I'm really interested in urolithin A. And this is a whole nother conversation on just like supplement and skin marketing and safety and third-party testing and all of that. So just really do your due diligence and looking for things that are third-party tested to make sure that there's authenticity in there and that there's also actually urolithin A in there and there's not like unwanted yucky stuff in there as well. So lots of interest in the molecule, both in terms of dietary supplement and topicals, but really the only formulations I would trust is Timeline. And we're the ones who put it on the map and have these major research institutions, like the fact that like L'Oreal L'Oreal, which is probably one of the biggest skincare companies in the world, if not the biggest, came to us and wants to study this molecule, right? And we have the NIH, we have the Buck Institute of Aging, we have these world-class research institutions wanting to work with us because of the potency and quality of our urolithin A as compared to anybody else's out there.
I can imagine people or companies going, yeah, great, we have now urolithin A supplement or urolithin A cream, and then pointing to your research and saying, look at
Yes.
the research, but
Yep.
it's not there. We don't know what's in there. Where is it coming from? Is there anything in that product? Is it really, and is the percentage high enough as well? And there's, yeah, again, a buyer beware. That's why I also only direct people if they're interested in urolithin A. I don't know about anything else, but I certainly know that your research is top notch.
Yeah, yeah. We have tested not so much. I haven't seen a lot of urolithin A skin pop up. Now, of course, as I'm saying this, like tomorrow Amazon will be flooded with it, but we have tested actually probably close to 100 urolithin A supplements that are on Amazon. And I want to
There are
say
even 100 of them. I wouldn't even guess.
there's a ton. Honestly, about a year ago, there weren't. But if you went today, I mean, there are so many Me Too's out there. And the vast majority of them don't have any urolithin A in there at all, period. Which begs the question, like, what is in there and why would I want to take that? So it's, we're not inexpensive, right? I think but a quality molecule to produce that it does take some financial means to do that. So if you are looking at, say, a skincare product or a supplement and it's $30 and you're comparing it to ours, well, like that should be a trigger, like this probably is just junk, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so it is really just buyer beware. And that, again, that's with all supplements. Like you just really need to be mindful of where you're getting them. I literally just got a study like from probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, just about like junk B12 that's showing up on Amazon, which has like nothing in it. It was about a year or two ago. There was a big study on like melatonin ranging from supplements that had zero melatonin to 20 times what the label said.
Mhm.
It's an industry-wide issue that is really concerning. And it puts a lot of distrust, unfortunately, in the supplement industry. And there are a few brands, Timeline. I mean, honestly, that's why I came to Timeline is I've been a dietitian for almost 30 years. Like I have never seen another supplement company that has taken the charge with the research that they've done, published it in top tier medical journals. So not some lowly little medical journal, things like JAMA Network. Anyone who, Nature Metabolism, anyone who's listening who is a science junkie will know these are really, really well-respected medical journals and the transparency to what goes in all of their products. And skin is, as a 30-year dietitian, I know that the supplement industry is kind of the Wild West. And as I've started to learn more about skin, it's even like more wilder. It's just, I mean, the claims that people can make, like I could probably put some like coconut oil into a lotion in my kitchen and give that to you. And you're like, I love this. And I'm like, 100% of people say it's amazing, right? And sell it.
Yeah.
That's meaningless, right? So it's hard to be a consumer out there right now.
Yeah, we've done a whole podcast episode on what to look out for in buying supplements and all of the things that happen behind the scenes. It's kind of horrifying. So if I can remember, I'll put the link to that episode as well.
Yeah.
You've got to know where you're getting your ingredients from as well. So let's get back to the ingredients in urolithin A for our skin. So what are just some of the benefits? You mentioned finer lines and wrinkles in terms of topical urolithin A. What does it do? Anything else?
The main things that the urolithin A specifically are doing is it's targeting both the intrinsic, the biological pathways of aging, again, that mitophagy, which again is targeting the fine lines and wrinkles, but then the external drivers of aging. So we talked a little bit about the photo damage. So that's really the sweet spot there, is that it's hitting these two different hallmarks of why our skin ages. So again, that like photo protection that happens, the helping our skin to resolve the damage that's happening from the sun. Now, I would never say this is a sunblock. Like people still need to be very careful in the sun, but this is going to help. Like I know I put my sunblock on every morning, especially now it's starting to get like summertime and I'm in New York, right? And I go and walk the dog at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I haven't reapplied sunblock, right? So we are still getting exposed. Shame on me. I probably should, right? But that's the reality. I think most people like apply it in the morning and they don't. So we're still getting these damaging sun rays. So that's this unique thing, is that it's getting to the biology of why our skin ages, this decline in mitochondrial function, but then it's also getting to the external things that are contributing to skin aging as well.
I've been using the serum, le serum, because this is made in Switzerland and we're using French words. And I've gone through a second one. And then I added, so I had really great results with that. I mean, I saw it immediately. I love the texture. It's so easy to apply. But then when I got the night cream, I don't know, it's like a month or two later. Oh my God, that was exactly what I was looking for in a night cream. It's creamy, it's rich, and as we're going through menopause, like we're more dehydrated, so we can't just use the
Yeah.
gel stuff anymore. And it's not sticky, it has no fragrance. I can feel that, like I noticed it was a wow moment. There are very few products that give me the wow factor. And that was a wow factor the next day. I mean, I was like, oh, I like it. But the next morning, I could feel the texture of my skin totally different. And then what I didn't realize actually until recently was that the serum and the night cream, and then all the timeline products I looked after that, have amazing Yuka app scores. And if anyone doesn't know what a Yuka is, a Yuka app, it's an app that rates products, not only skincare, but supplements as well. And you can't buy a place on here. It's totally unbiased as far as I understand. And so when I saw the Yuka score was 93 out of 100, which is an excellent score, it's really hard to find products that are that. Most of them aren't. This just totally made me happy. And I'm so pleased. So I've been sharing that, wow, if you want something really quote unquote clean, I hate that word clean, but okay, that is also, so not only powerful enough to help us with our aging skin, but it's safe because sometimes you see these excellent scores with things that are au naturel and essential oils, and you're like, that's great. I love that stuff, but it's just not powerful enough to reverse some here. So let's talk a little bit about how you got that score and what other ingredients are in there and what's probably not in there that's giving it such an awesome score.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest reason that it has that score is what's not in there, right? So there are no fragrances or dyes. The all three of the skin products have this very, which is funny. I think it's like the color of the season is this like very pale, buttery yellow color. That's actually the color of Urolithin A. It's got this like nice little pale yellow. So there are no harsh preservatives. There are no parabens. There are no of these like known irritants to the skin, right? And that's what makes it so gentle. And then you mentioned there's a serum, there's a day cream, and there's a night cream. So each of the three products has a slightly different formulation. They all have 1% urolithin A, which is the concentration that really we found to be effective at triggering mitophagy, wrinkle reduction, and that photo damage effect. So whether you use the day cream, whether you use the night cream, whether you use the serum, you're going to get that 1% urolithin A. But here's where like you can use all three of the products, or you could just start with one and fit that into what makes the most sense. So the serum is very light and milky and hydrating, and it's really meant for lifting and tightening. And then the day cream actually happens to be my personal favorite. And if you ask any one of us at the company, we'll all have a different favorite. So you have to take this with a grain of salt. The
I
day
haven't
cream.
tried it yet, though.
Oh, we gotta get
I mean,
you
I'm
some.
already impressed with the night cream. Now
Yeah.
the day cream.
Yeah. So the day cream, in addition to having some niacinamide and this antioxidant shield, it just has this really like dewy, like moisturizing. There's some shea butter in there, which it just gives my skin this really nice glow and it sits so nicely. I don't wear a lot of makeup like right now. I just have a very like a light tinted moisturizer on. And so it just makes that go on flawlessly. And I think my skin just looks so dewy with that. And then the night cream, which you had mentioned, is really deeply hydrating and meant to lock in moisture overnight. There's a little prickly pear extract in there, which is like a very gentle, mild exfoliator. So you're getting a little bit of that happening overnight. And I think of it almost as like a hydrating mask. Like it's got that sort of like moisture lock that you put that on at night and you wake up like even when like I shower in the morning, like I wake up and I can almost feel it as I'm like washing
Yeah,
my face in the
I can.
morning, like this really nice like moisture layer on my skin.
I
So
almost feel bad taking it off. I'm like, no, I
yeah,
probably should leave
yeah,
it on. But you feel like I should wash my face. I know it's exactly the feeling. Like you feel
yeah,
it. Like it's like a
exactly.
mask. It-
They're all really beautiful. And to your point, like we were very diligent in how the skin scientists formulated those products so that they were the most effective and that we put in there. Research is our backbone. Like that, everything that we do is driven by science. And so we didn't want to put anything in there that is just trendy, like beef tallow, right? Like we wanted to put something in there that the science shows like it's going to support what urolithin A is doing. And so that's how all of these were formulated. And so I often get, well, which one should I use? Should I use all three? So you can certainly use all three. Like because there's different ingredients in each one, it makes a holistic skincare line. But if you're just looking for one place to start, I think the most common place people start is with the serum because it plays nice with other things. You don't have to break up with any of your beloved skincare products, and you can just put that in with where you would put your other serums. And the way serum layering happens is like the most like aqueous liquid one. You'll want to put that on first and kind of build up with like thicker ones. So this is a little milkier. So I usually put this like on top of something that's very water based. But if you're like, I haven't really found a night cream that I'm in love with, then start with our night cream. I think that's really the beauty of it. And like I said, I cannot live without our day cream. Like that to me is perfect. And then depending on your skin type, they can play double duty. So if you do tend to have oilier skin, you could potentially get away with the day cream as a night cream. If you have really dry skin, a lot of people, especially who live in northern climates, will use the night cream during the day in winter months. So you can kind of, again, depending on what your skin type is and what you need, you can kind of play around with that and multitask with some of these products.
Cool. So what's in the pipeline for Timeline?
Yeah, so lots is in the pipeline. So I think the first thing is new research. We are constantly pushing the envelope to understand what urolithin A can do, whether it's in the skin, whether it's the oral supplementation. So there should be some really interesting research coming out in the next, we're in early April as we're recording, and in the next couple of months, I would say by end of summer, I hope there's going to be some new research looking at athletic performance with a dietary supplement, immune. We sort of talked about that. And there's some really interesting research that's just even kicking off in terms of like brain aging and cognition and some other areas of like metabolic health. So that's super exciting. And then we are going to be launching some new products this year, which by the time this posts, there may be some new products out. So both in the skin world and in the dietary supplements, some new formulations, some new products. So when people are listening to this, I just encourage them to go to the website and check out what's new because it's going to be a really exciting year for Timeline.
Oh, okay. Now I'm curious.
Yeah.
Um,
We'll make sure we get you to experience them so you can kind of share that with your audience as well. So yeah.
Would love that. Oh, thank you so much. Jennifer, is there anything else that we haven't covered that we should mention about urolithin A or nutrition, skin, anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I think we really covered the gamut. I mean, the foundational pieces of anything is going to be diet, exercise, sleep, lifestyle, right? We're all looking for tools that can help take us to the next level. And I really, and I understand, right? Like I work for the company, but I chose to work here because of the science of urolithin A. I don't have to be doing this. I think this is really a molecule that is a game changer in terms of how we age. And I really think of this as a foundational piece, at the very least, for the dietary supplement and skin. If you're concerned about skin health, like then it definitely is foundational there too. If skin is like not your game and you're happy with just using coconut oil, then that's fine too. But I think when we're talking about internal health for sure and skin health, like the science is just remarkable. And I truly believe this is a foundational piece of our health, just like an omega-3 fatty acid, just like a multivitamin, just like a probiotic. This is something that we should be really considering integrating into our day. And again, for skin, just like peptide, just the traditional, I would say even could potentially replace like the retinols because you won't get that irritating effect. It's really like an everyday health item.
Oh, that's why I think so many people I know, and doctors and researchers, other podcast hosts are on board with Timeline just because of the research. It's pretty profound and
Yeah, there's a
convincing. It's great. It's great. So I encourage everyone to go and read the studies if you'd like. And I will have a link to the website, which is timeline.com. You can follow the Instagram, the Facebook, the YouTube. You guys got everything here.
yeah.
And if you want to try out Mitopure, the serum, the day cream, the night cream, everything that's out there, or wait for the latest and greatest, I have 10% off your first order with the code ZORA, that's ZORA, at timeline.com/ZORA. And if you have questions for Jennifer, you can ask her on her Instagram, which I'll have a link to that. It's Jen Scheinman _nutrition. And your website, I'll have a link to that too, Next Gen Health. So I appreciate you taking the time to speak to me and educate me and the audience as well about urolithin A, because I still think for a lot of people, it's a relatively new molecule that's picking up traction, and we're ahead of the game knowing that it exists and it's here. And I'm excited to hear more about the research. So thank you, everyone who's been listening, who made it to the end. And thank you, Jennifer, for sharing your time with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.